I let my sister use my room for her gender reveal party because she said it had better lighting. My parents made me sit outside so I wouldn't get in the photos. They never noticed what was missing until it was too late. I'm Marla. 38, divorced, no kids, and currently living in Ashland, Oregon. I moved back in with my parents 2 years ago after my divorce, and I should have known that was a mistake the moment I walked back through that front door. But at the time, it felt like my only option. I had been married for 6 years. My ex-husband, Nolan, was a quiet man. Kind, but cold. The kind of man who thought asking how your day was going was enough intimacy for a month. We drifted apart slowly, like strangers who shared a kitchen and a bed but nothing else. When he told me he was moving out, I felt more relief than pain. The real sting came after, realizing how much time I had spent trying to make something work that was always broken. I didn't have much when I came back home. A couple suitcases, a few boxes, some furniture that ended up in the garage. I moved back into my old room, which was surprisingly untouched. Same east-facing window that bathed the room in soft light every morning, same creaky floorboards. I repainted the walls, brought in a modest desk and a chair, and tried to make it feel like mine again. A sanctuary, however temporary. My parents, Vera and Charles, were in their early 60s, both retired, both still living like they were raising kids in the 90s. Routine, strict expectations, subtle judgment wrapped in forced smiles. They didn't say much about the divorce. Just an awkward "we're sorry" followed by immediate questions about when I was going to get back on my feet. But what really reminded me of how little I belonged there anymore was my sister. Bianca. Bianca is 4 years younger than me, and has always been the golden child. Always. She was the girl with the perfect smile, the bubbly laugh, the straight A's and the varsity jacket, the prom queen who also volunteered at the animal shelter. I, on the other hand, was the reader. The wallflower. The she'll find her way child. It was always Bianca's world. We were just orbiting it. Bianca had married Caleb 2 years prior, an IT guy from Anderson, friendly enough but completely whipped by her. They announced they were pregnant during Thanksgiving dinner in front of both sides of the family, with a tiny pair of booties and tears. My parents were over the moon. It was like they had been holding their breath for years, waiting for the family legacy to be secured. I was happy for her, genuinely. I didn't want kids. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what I did, I'd always be the extra in Bianca's spotlight. Then came the gender reveal. Bianca wanted it at our parents' house, sorry, the family home. She didn't ask. She just announced it one Sunday over brunch like it was already decided. My mom nodded enthusiastically. My dad grunted something about parking space. Nobody looked at me. I kept my mouth shut. After all, it wasn't my house. I was just the adult child who'd moved back in after a failed marriage. My room, though, that was mine. So when Bianca knocked on my door one afternoon, all sweet smiles and clasped hands, I should have known what was coming. "Your room has the best lighting," she said, gesturing toward the window. "It would be perfect for the photos. Like, dreamy Pinterest vibes." I blinked at her. "You want to use my room for the party?" "Just for the photos." The big moment. "We'll clean everything after, I promise." My first instinct was to say no. My room was the only space that felt safe, that felt mine. But I also knew what no would mean: my mother's disapproving silence, my father's passive-aggressive muttering, Bianca's sulking. So, against my better judgment, I said yes. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't have prepared for, was what happened on the day of the party. It was early September, hot and dry like most wedding days. I helped set up all morning. Balloons, streamers, snacks, a banner that read "he or she?" Pop to see. My room was cleared out of anything too personal, rearranged for photo ops. I watched as strangers and distant relatives trailed through it, stepping on my rug with their dusty shoes, leaning against my desk like it was a prop. An hour before the party started, my mom pulled me aside. Bianca was wondering, she began cautiously, "if you'd mind stepping outside for a while?" Just during the reveal. "She's worried it might get too crowded in the room for photos." I stared at her. "She doesn't want me in the pictures?" "It's not that. It's just, there's a certain aesthetic she's going for. You understand?" No. I didn't. But I nodded anyway. So I sat outside. On the back porch, In the sun. With a paper plate of cucumber sandwiches and a lukewarm soda. Through the open window, I heard laughter, shouting, squeals of excitement. The balloon pop came 5 minutes later. Blue confetti. A boy. Nobody came to get me. I waited 30 more minutes, sipping my soda like it was poison. Eventually, people began filtering outside with smiles and phone screens showing off identical pictures of Bianca and Caleb grinning under a rain of confetti. I didn't say a word. I just went back inside when the coast was clear. My room was trashed. Frosting smeared on my dresser, glitter stuck in the carpet, a punch cup left overturned on my windowsill. And there was Bianca, flopped across my bed, scrolling through her phone. "Oh my God, Marla," she laughed, "the light in here was perfect. Thank you so much." That night, after everyone left, I stayed up cleaning. Scrubbing. Picking bits of glitter out of the fibers of my rug with tweezers. My mom had gone to bed with a "You've been such a help, sweetheart." My dad didn't say anything. Just grunted again. That's when I noticed the vanity. The old wooden vanity my mother had gifted me when I was 16. It had a crack in one leg, and one of the drawers stuck. But it was mine. And someone had scrawled a heart in pink lipstick across the mirror. Something inside me shifted. Not snapped. Not all at once. But shifted. Like a heavy stone sliding quietly into place. I didn't speak to anyone in the house for 2 days. When Bianca came by to thank me again, I told her she was welcome. That was it. Then I started making plans. Quietly. Carefully. And I started removing things. Things that mattered to me, and a few things that mattered to them. I started small. The books I loved most went into boxes and then into my car trunk. My desk lamp, the one my grandfather had given me when I got into college, was the next to disappear. Nobody noticed. They never really looked in my room unless they needed something. Then came the quilt. It was a family heirloom, hand-stitched by my great-grandmother during the Great Depression, supposedly made from fabric scraps of clothes worn by our ancestors. It had always been stored in the hope chest in the hallway until my mom passed it on to me when I was 25 and about to get married. The plan, as my mother had repeated for years, was that it would one day go to the first grandchild. Bianca was already hinting at it. Casually, of course. "Do you think the quilt would go better with a wood crib or white?" she'd asked one afternoon while I was walking past her at the dining room table. I didn't answer. The night after the party, while everyone slept, I folded the quilt and packed it with care into a large flat-rate shipping box. I wrote my friend Aubrey's address on it. She lived in Ashland and had always told me I had a place to crash if I needed out. She was my college roommate, my closest friend, and one of the few people who had seen how broken I was after the divorce. I included a short note: "Hold this for me. Please don't ask questions yet." I drove to the post office the next morning before anyone woke up and mailed it. Over the next week, I removed almost everything from my room that felt tied to the house, to them, or to that awful day. Bianca stopped by occasionally, always with the same fake smile and some new baby announcement. My mom talked constantly about the nursery they were helping set up in Caleb and Bianca's new place. No one noticed the blank spaces on my shelves or that my laundry hamper had vanished. They only noticed the morning I left. It was a Wednesday. I packed the rest of my things the night before and loaded my car. I had gotten the job offer from Ashland Books and Press, a small but reputable publishing company, in an email that Monday. I accepted it within hours. A new city, a new start, and a job that, while not glamorous, would at least respect me. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I drove out of the driveway at 5:45 a.m. and watched my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. I didn't feel guilty. 2 days later, the text started. "Mom, where are you? Dad, you left? What the hell is going on? Bianca, are you seriously just gone?" I ignored them. Then came the angrier ones. "Mom, you could have at least told us. This is your family, Marla. Bianca, did you take the quilt? Are you kidding me?" That one made me laugh. I waited a full 24 hours before replying, "Yes. I have the quilt. I'm not sending it back." Then I blocked her number. I never wanted it to come to this. I didn't want to sever ties or be petty. But something about being treated like a ghost in my own home, like a set piece in Bianca's perfectly lit photo shoot, made me realize that I was never truly seen there. Not as an adult, not as a person, and certainly not as someone who had feelings of her own. I had always been expected to fade into the background. Be supportive. Be useful. Be quiet. Leaving wasn't revenge. It was liberation. I'm in Ashland now. Living in a tiny but warm studio above a used bookstore. I walk to work. I make my own coffee. I have a window that faces east, and sometimes, when the sun comes in just right, I think about how hard I fought for just a sliver of peace. They still don't know where I live. And for now, I'd like to keep it that way. Sometimes I wonder how long it took them to realize I wasn't coming back. I imagine my mother pacing the hallway, waiting for me to storm back in through the front door, arms crossed, demanding an apology that would never come. I imagine my father saying something like, "She'll come to her senses," with that same dismissive grunt he gave my entire adulthood. And I imagine Bianca, scrolling through Instagram, carefully curating a feed that looks nothing like reality, complaining that I had ruined her gender reveal moment by making it about me. Because that's what they do. They spin things so they always come out the victims. They didn't ask themselves why I left. Not really. They asked what they lost. Who'd do the cleaning now? Who'd help with the baby shower invitations? Who would quietly hold the family's loose ends together without ever asking for anything? The silence from them stretched out. Weeks went by, then months. Occasionally, I'd get emails from extended family, my Aunt Helene, who was always kind but overly involved. She asked how I was, what I was doing, and casually slipped in, "Your mother misses you. Things haven't been the same." She didn't mention the party. Or the porch. Or the quilt. I wrote back once, "Tell her I'm doing well. And that I needed to go." It wasn't sudden, even if it looked that way. It was years coming. That was it. I didn't explain. I wasn't going to unpack decades of emotional dismissal and favoritism into an email. Meanwhile, I was finally, slowly, learning how to be my own person again. Ashland was everything I needed and nothing I expected. The air was cooler, the town quieter, but filled with a kind of artistic buzz I'd forgotten existed. People actually made eye contact here. Conversations felt genuine. There was a rhythm to life that wasn't dictated by who needed me and when. My apartment was small, just a studio above a little bookshop called Timberline Reads, but it was mine. I didn't have to ask permission to decorate. No one rolled their eyes when I lit a candle or rearranged the furniture. I bought myself a soft, moss-green comforter for the bed, a cheap thrift store armchair, and 2 houseplants I named Gwen and Minnie. Aubrey came over one night with Thai food and wine. We sat on the floor, cross-legged, catching up like we were 22 again. "So," she said between bites of pad CEW, "you just packed up and left? Didn't even say goodbye?" "Not a word," I said. "I didn't think I owed them one." She nodded slowly, then reached for the wine bottle. "No. You didn't." A few weeks after that, the quilt arrived from her place. She brought it over in a plastic storage container. "I didn't peek," she said. Though I was tempted. I laughed and unfolded it across my bed. The fabric was worn, soft, edges a little frayed. It smelled faintly of cedar and the past. But when I looked at it now, it didn't feel like something I had stolen. It felt like something I had claimed. Work was steady, if unglamorous. I started as an editorial assistant, mostly reading submissions, answering emails, editing blurbs, but slowly took on more projects. My boss, an older man named Victor, told me he appreciated my eye for quiet storytelling. "You have a good sense for what people are trying to say," he said one afternoon while we ate lunch outside on a bench near Lithia Park. "You listen between the lines." It was the first time in a long time that someone noticed a skill I had without comparing me to Bianca. I made friends. I joined a book club. I went to open mic poetry nights and farmers markets and even a few awkward but well-meaning dates. I was living. Still, every now and then, there'd be a reminder of what I left behind. Like the baby shower invitation that showed up in my inbox from Bianca's email. It was clearly a mass send, there was no personal note, just a list of details and a cutesy rhyme about diapers and bottles and tiny blue shoes. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before deleting it. A week later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Caleb here. I know things are complicated, but B and I would like you there. She's hurt, even if she won't say it. Just think about it. I stared at that one even longer. What he didn't say was everything I needed to know. No apology. No acknowledgement of what they did. No accountability. Just an olive branch extended with the hope I'd fall back into the role they were comfortable with, the quiet sister, the one who showed up and kept the peace. I didn't respond. Not then. Instead, I printed the message out, folded it in half, and tucked it into the back of my journal. I wasn't going to let it ruin the night I had planned, a Friday evening with roasted vegetables, hot tea, and a new manuscript I was editing. The truth is, I had been conditioned for most of my life to believe that love meant shrinking myself to fit into someone else's frame. That if I just stayed small enough, helpful enough, they'd make room for me. But in Ashland, in my tiny studio with its mismatched furniture and fading hardwood floors, I was building a life where I no longer had to ask anyone for space. And I was starting to realize, I deserved that life all along. The messages stopped for a while after I didn't reply to Caleb. I think that was the moment they gave up, at least temporarily, on trying to reel me back in. But the quiet didn't mean closure. In October, I got a letter in the mail. A real one. Handwritten. The envelope was addressed in my mother's unmistakable cursive, narrow loops, tightly spaced. For a moment, I considered tossing it in the recycling bin unopened. But curiosity, or maybe habit, got the better of me. It wasn't long. Just a single sheet of paper, lined, pulled from a yellow legal pad. Marla, I hope this letter finds you well. I know you've chosen space from the family, and I'm trying to respect that, even if I don't fully understand it. We've never been the type to talk about feelings, I know that. Maybe that's part of the problem. Your sister is due any day now. She's nervous. We all are. This is a big moment for the family. I wish you would consider coming home, just for a visit. It doesn't have to be about the past. Just, be there. For her. For the baby. I don't know what happened to the quilt. I'm assuming you took it. I won't ask for it back. But I want you to know it wasn't meant to exclude you. You've always been loved, even if we didn't always show it right. Mom, no apology. No acknowledgement of the porch, or the way they treated me during the party. Just the typical vague gestures toward misunderstanding, the passive admission that maybe things weren't perfect. I folded the letter and slid it into the drawer next to my bed. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I didn't trust myself not to read it again and let it pull me into their version of the story. 3 days later, Bianca gave birth. It was all over Facebook and Instagram, photos from the hospital room, her in a pale blue robe cradling a tiny red-faced boy with wisps of dark hair. Caleb had posted a long caption about being blessed beyond belief. My parents were in the background of some of the photos, smiling like they'd just won a Lifetime Achievement Award. My name didn't appear anywhere. That stung more than I expected. Even after all of it, a small part of me, a child's part, had hoped they'd remember me. That someone would say, "We wish Marla were here." But I wasn't part of their narrative anymore. I had made myself an outsider. And once I stepped outside the frame, they seemed to stop even checking whether I was watching. Still, I found myself scrolling through every photo. Looking for something. I don't even know what. Maybe I was hoping to see some flash of remorse on Bianca's face. A sign that, for even a second, she missed me. But all I saw was contentment. Perfection. A woman surrounded by the family that adored her, in a hospital room lit just right. The same lighting she'd once kicked me out of my own room to preserve. I set my phone down and didn't touch social media again for 2 weeks. Instead, I threw myself into work. Victor offered me a more permanent role, associate editor. I'd never had a job title that sounded important before. I almost cried in his office, which felt absurd, but also inevitable. He gave me a small raise, a new batch of manuscripts, and the freedom to pitch my own ideas. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. Evenings in Ashland became my ritual. I'd light a candle by the window and sit in my chair with a cup of mint tea. Sometimes I'd write, sometimes I'd read, and sometimes I'd do nothing at all, just watch the sky fade from gold to deep lavender behind the trees. One night in early November, I got a text. Unknown number again. He's here. His name is Micah. Just thought you'd want to know. He looks a little like you, weirdly. Hope you're good. No signature, but I knew it was Bianca. The guilt was tucked neatly between the lines. Just enough space for plausible deniability. I stared at it for a long time. There was a time when I would have jumped at that olive branch, eager to prove I wasn't bitter, that I could be the bigger person. That maybe I could still belong. But I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care. But because I finally did. That night, I pulled the quilt from the closet and wrapped it around my shoulders. I sat by the window with the candle flickering beside me and let myself feel everything. Grief. Relief. Anger. Peace. All tangled together like the faded threads in that old patchwork heirloom. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the one who remembered everything. And I was building something that would last, even if no one in that house ever saw it. A few weeks after Micah was born, the first package arrived. It was a large padded envelope with no return address, but the handwriting on the label was unmistakable, my mother's tight, slightly slanted script, written in black ballpoint pen. She never liked printing things digitally unless absolutely necessary. I held it for a minute, debating whether to open it. Part of me thought it might be a trap, a passive-aggressive olive branch, or worse, an invitation dressed as sentiment. I didn't want to participate in their performance, but curiosity won out. Inside were 3 things. First, a printed 5x7 photo of Bianca holding the baby, standing next to Caleb. The background looked like their living room, streamers and balloons again, pale blue and white, a big sign on the wall behind them that said "Welcome Micah." My parents flanked them, all glowing, all looking exactly how they wanted the world to see them. The second item was a baby announcement card. Glossy, with gold lettering. Micah James Weatherby. Born October 16, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Our hearts are full. The back had a poem about tiny feet and miracles. The third item was a folded sheet of notebook paper. No envelope, no pretense. Marla, I don't know if you'll read this, or even keep it, but I needed to try. I miss you. I really do. The house doesn't feel right without you. I know things went wrong. I know we weren't fair to you. But please understand, it wasn't that we didn't care. It's just that Bianca was going through so much. And she needed support. You were always so strong. Maybe we leaned on that too much. Maybe we didn't notice when you needed something, too. The baby's beautiful. You would love him. You always had a soft spot for kids. Please write back. Or call. Just let me know you're okay. Love, Mom. I sat with that letter in my lap for a long time. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I had expected denial or deflection. But this? This half apology, this sideways regret that still revolved around Bianca? We leaned on you too much. You were always strong. That was the family story. The myth I was cast in from the beginning. It's hard to explain what it's like to be the one who always had to be okay. Not because you were actually okay, but because it was easier for everyone else that way. Because when the golden child faltered, the world stopped. But when did you? They called it resilience. And I had believed it for years. But now I could see the truth. I wasn't strong because I wanted to be. I was strong because no one ever gave me a choice. I didn't write back. But I kept the letter. Folded it gently, pressed it between 2 pages of an old journal I kept by my bedside. Not out of sentimentality, but because it was a record. A relic of the version of myself I had outgrown. Christmas came quickly that year. It was the first holiday I spent entirely alone, and I loved it. No tinsel-covered guilt trips. No strained family dinners. Just me, a warm casserole dish, a bottle of wine, and a collection of old Christmas jazz records I picked up from a thrift store near the university. I hung a few paper snowflakes in the window. Bought a tiny second-hand tree and decorated it with twine and dried oranges. Aubrey stopped by Christmas Eve with cinnamon rolls and we sat in our pajamas on the floor and watched old movies until midnight. I never once checked my phone. But I did get a voicemail on Christmas Day. My mom again. Hi sweetheart. It's Mom. We missed you today. I know you're probably busy or out with friends or something. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas. And that we love you. I hope you're warm and safe and happy. Long pause. Micah wore the sweater you knitted for him when you were in high school. The little one with the stars? We still had it packed away. He looked so cute. Thought you'd want to know. I hadn't thought about that sweater in years. It was the first thing I'd ever knitted, a lopsided attempt in high school during a crafting phase. I didn't even know it had been saved. Apparently my mother had. That information shouldn't have hit me the way it did, but it did. It wasn't enough to make me go back. But it was enough to make me feel something complicated. Something I didn't have a name for. I didn't reply to the voicemail. Instead, I started knitting again. I didn't know why at first, just a compulsion, almost. Maybe the act of doing something slow, methodical, and gentle felt like a way to reclaim a softness I'd abandoned. Maybe it was a way of processing memories that still had sharp edges. Whatever the reason, I knitted through the winter. A scarf, a second one, then a pair of mittens I gave to Aubrey, who squealed like she'd won the lottery. "You made these?" she said, pulling one on and inspecting it like it was a relic. "You're seriously wasted in publishing." "I think I just needed something I could do with my hands," I said. "Something that doesn't need to be useful to anyone but me." She raised her glass and toasted to that. By February, I felt steady. Not healed, healing. Not whole, but present. And that was more than I'd had in years. One day, walking home from work with snow still clinging to the rooftops, I passed a young mother carrying her toddler on her hip, bundled in a navy blue jacket with tiny stars stitched along the sleeves. And I smiled. Not because I thought of Bianca. But because, for the first time in a long time, I didn't think of her at all. Spring arrived in Ashland quietly. The snow melted off the rooftops, replaced by an early bloom of cherry blossoms near the town square. With the season came a restlessness I hadn't felt in a long time, not discomfort, but clarity. I could finally see my life for what it was, my own. I have routines now. Morning walks to the cafe on First Street. Weekly dinner with Aubrey. Poetry readings. Nights spent editing manuscripts under a thrifted lamp in my cozy studio. The quilt lay neatly folded at the foot of my bed, untouched but always in sight. Then, in late March, I received another letter. Different handwriting this time, more upright, deliberate. "Caleb. Marla, I hope this isn't crossing a line. I know you haven't wanted contact. But I wanted to reach out myself, away from Bianca. I've been thinking a lot about the way things unfolded last year. The party. The way you were treated. The aftermath. I didn't speak up then, and I should have. I saw what happened, but I let Bianca and your parents set the tone. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to come back. I just want you to know that someone in that house saw you. Even if it was too late. I've started a memory book for Micah. I want him to know his whole family, not just the curated version Bianca wants to show him. If you ever feel comfortable, I'd love for you to write something for him. A story. A memory. Anything. Take care. And thank you, for the quilt. I know you kept it. I think it's better with you. Caleb. I didn't cry. I just sat with the letter for a while. The part about the curated version echoed in my mind. That was Bianca's entire identity, a glossy veneer. And it was Caleb who finally admitted it. There was no dramatic confrontation, no screaming match, no viral post exposing the family. That wasn't my style. But that letter gave me the final puzzle piece I didn't know I was waiting for. And that's when the idea came to me. It was subtle. Quiet. Personal. I started writing. Not a letter. Not a message. But a book. It started as a collection of journal entries, then turned into scenes, and slowly, into a memoir. Not a revenge tale, but a true one. About growing up in the shadow of someone else's spotlight. About emotional neglect, family dynamics, invisible daughters, and finally, freedom. I changed names. I changed the town. But the heart of it was real. When I showed the first draft to Victor, he said nothing for a long time after finishing. Then he looked up and said, "You've got something here. This needs to be published." I spent the next 3 months rewriting, shaping, digging deeper. When the book finally went to print, I didn't tell anyone in my family. But I made sure a copy went to the local bookstore back in Reading. I knew someone would find it. The book came out in October, a year after the gender reveal. Reviews were quiet at first, then steady. Nothing viral, but enough buzz in literary circles that people began reaching out. I got emails, DMs, messages from women in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I felt like I was reading my own life. I never knew anyone else had been the forgotten one too. Thank you for telling this story. One day, I got a notification on my author's Instagram. A new tag. A picture of the book sitting on a white coffee table. A caption underneath, "It's uncomfortable when someone tells the truth. Especially when it's your truth, too." Found this in the local shop and knew immediately who it was about. Sometimes being the golden child isn't all it's cracked up to be when the mirror's finally held up. It was Bianca. No name. No message. Just that. I never responded. But I knew she'd read it. Every page. Every paragraph. Every line where I had quietly, unapologetically told the truth she'd tried to bury under glitter and camera angles. The truth couldn't be cropped out of the frame this time. A few months later, I got another letter from my mother. This one was shorter. "Marla, I read your book. I don't agree with everything. But I understand why you wrote it. And I'm sorry. Mom, that was all. And that was enough." I didn't write back. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I had said everything I needed to say, and the world had listened. I still live in Ashland. Same studio. Same slow, steady days filled with editing and walks and poetry and tea. The quilt still rests at the foot of my bed. But now, it's not just an heirloom. It's a symbol. Of the things I took back. Of the girl who sat on the porch while her family posed for pictures, and the woman who stepped out of the frame and wrote her own story. No cruelty. No theatrics. No death. Just a quiet, satisfying truth. And the freedom that came with it.